So I think there's not one silver bullet that's going to solve this problem. I think it's a number of things an agency needs to do. Everything from more ways to pay or flexibility in how renters pay, alerts, reminders, notifications, having a person or a resource that phones individuals and helps them along from shifting their schedules, changing their schedules. I think having a call center or a resource available is a really good tool to manage those arrears. And giving the renter features and tools to stay on top of their budgeting is a really important one. So I think a combination of all of those will help lower arrears.
Welcome to another episode of the Property Management Podcast. I'm Kylie Walker. Thank you so much for being here. Now, today we're diving into a topic that every landlord and property manager has likely faced at some point. It's rent arrears. And it's one of those issues that can start off really small with just a late payment here or there. But if not managed properly, it can snowball into something much bigger, leading to serious financial stress and even legal battles. Rent arrears is a task that must be given attention daily. And whilst there's some great automation around rent arrears in our software programs, nothing will fix the ultimate problem of having to pick up the phone and have that awkward conversation with tenants about why their rent is late. And sometimes we forget the human element involved in managing finances or money. Life happens. Illnesses, jobs, relationships, or addictions can all affect rental payments. And maybe it's time for us to focus on more of a holistic solution to the rent arrears issue, like helping tenants with budgeting tools and saving money for a rainy day when their car breaks down suddenly or unexpectedly. And look, let's be honest, we've all been there. We've all had financial struggles from time to time. And when someone genuinely doesn't have money to pay rent because of a life circumstance, we can sometimes be very unempathetic. But what if I told you there was more creative solutions and support for businesses and property managers navigating rent arrears than you thought? What if some of the workload was even taken off you so that you could focus on different tasks that you really enjoy? Well, stay tuned to this episode because you're going to learn that there's more than one way to avoid rent arrears. In this episode, we're fortunate enough to have Shane Lavagna-Slater, the General Manager of RentPay, joining us. Now, Shane has a wealth of experience in academia, financial management, and the property sector, and has been at the forefront of creating innovative solutions to help landlords and tenants manage rent payments more effectively. Today, he'll be sharing his insights on how to prevent rent arrears, some real-life stories about the struggles of getting tenants to pay rent on time, and how they've helped transform some of the businesses they work with and reduce their rent arrears by up to 60%. And he'll also share how blown-out rent arrears can seriously impact property management businesses. So let's dive in to this episode. Shane, thank you so much for joining me on the Property Management Podcast. Now, before we dive in, can you share with our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, good. Thank you for having me, Kylie. I really appreciate it. Yep. So my name is Shane Lavagna-Slater. I'm the General Manager of RentPay. So fairly new to the role, but trying to scale the business quite nicely for rent.com.au, which is our holding company. A little bit about myself. I have come from an academics background. So I taught at universities and have a PhD in finance. We've always been involved with financial services, so banking, finance, credit, and now payments with RentPay. So I've come full circle from financial services into academics, now back into financial services.
That's amazing. So, well, you're well placed in the situation that you are in now with RentPay, which is amazing, an amazing product. So let's talk about rent arrears. And now this is something that almost every property manager will face at some point. And let's maybe go back to some of the basics. From your experience, what are some of the common reasons that tenants in their rent, and what are some of the best practices or principles that property managers should put in place to ensure that it doesn't blow out?
Yeah, so it's a big focus for us at RentPay, and we see we're kind of at the coalface because RentPay sits between the renter and the agency. We facilitate the payment. So we see arrears, dishonors, we see all of that on the front end with the tenant. So we have noticed a real big trend of a missed timing in the rental payment as well as the salary of the individual or the wage of the individual. So there's just a timing issue. So your rent is due on the Tuesday and your salary comes in on the Wednesday. That causes arrears. And that's a big timing issue. And also we find that paying weekly and earning fortnightly is also a big issue because it spills over into budgeting, setting money aside. It's even worse when you have to pay weekly and you earn monthly. That's a big problem. So there's a lot of timing discrepancies for renters, and we find that fixing that, the scheduling, fixing the time and value shifting for the renter really helps with those arrears.
Absolutely. And so we'll dive into some of the tools that you guys use to assist agencies down the track. But as I know you work with a lot of businesses. What are some of the best practices that you think agencies should put into place to manage their arrears? Because obviously if arrears blow out, it has a big impact on the business as a whole. Obviously, our property owners may not be able to pay their mortgage repayments if the rent's not in. But on top of that, the agency misses out on their income as well. So,
sure. So I think there's not one silver bullet that's going to solve this problem. I think it's a number of things an agency needs to do. Everything from more ways to pay or flexibility in how renters pay, alerts, reminders, notifications, having a person or a resource that phones individuals and helps them along from shifting their schedules, changing their schedules. I think having a call center or a resource available is a really good tool to manage those arrears. And giving the renter features and tools to stay on top of their budgeting is a really important one. So I think a combination of all of those will help lower arrears.
I think that's a great suggestion there, helping tenants with a budgeting tool. I mean, it's one thing for us to pick up the phone and say, hey, your rent is late, you need to pay your rent. But the reality is if the tenants had a life issue, maybe their car broke down, maybe they've had to, something's happened in their family and someone who's in hospital and they couldn't work for the week. It's not that easy for tenants to just, pay the rent when we call them up and say, hey, you're in arrears. But actually, having them, talking to them, I guess, about, putting money aside for that rainy day, and which you think shouldn't be part of our job, but I guess if we took a holistic approach to property management and we're dealing with people, that is part of the process. So I think that's a really valuable bit of advice that you put on there. And any other suggestions like that you think we could be doing to give that more holistic approach to arrears management?
Yeah, so I think the budgeting is a key aspect here. It's reducing that vulnerability of the tenant. So when those life events happen, there's not this shock and they fall off the cliff. So reducing that vulnerability of getting potentially a safety net in place, a cushion, a buffer of money set aside for rental payment. Yeah, so I think that's a really important point. I think the budgeting aspect for tenants is primarily or should be primarily focused on reducing that vulnerability. So when these life events happen, they're not forced off the edge of a cliff and they don't fall behind on their arrears, they don't fall behind on their car payments, etc., etc. I think getting ahead of their rental payments, having a cushion to absorb those life shocks is really important. So when you give a renter all these tips and tools and features to enable them to do that, they're less vulnerable to those life events happening to them. They can plan ahead. They have less shocks, less impact on their credit scores, things like that effectively set them back in life.
Absolutely. And for me in my business, we spend a lot of time on rent arrears and have a whole process around it. At the moment, actually, unbelievably, even though they're saying that we're in an affordability crisis and that we're in a cost of living crisis, sure. My rent arrears has never been so low, but my team spend a lot of time on the phone every single day, calling tenants, checking in with them, having conversations around getting that week or two buffer in place. And that's an time investment for us as a business owner. But I know at RentPay that you've developed some particular tools and systems that have had a proven effect on helping tenants stay on top of their payments. So can you maybe share some of those with us that might make our jobs a bit easier?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said previously, RentPay sits between the tenant and the agency and collects the rent from the tenant and pays over to the agency. We offer renters a lot more choice on how they pay, when they pay their rent. So they can pay their rent via direct debit, BPay, PayID, and most importantly, PayID and credit cards are instant payments. So when a tenant comes and uses RentPay, if they, for instance, sign up and use direct debit and they default or they dishonor on their rent payment, our call center steps in and we phone them. We say to them, you've missed a payment. Here are the other ways you can pay, which will be instant payment methods, which will make sure that your rent is paid on time in order to pay that rent. On top of that, we also have built-in alerts, reminders, notifications in-app and email to keep the tenant on top of their rent. And on the front end, we've built a lot of renter-friendly features, like a buffer to get ahead of their rent payment, so they can add in a little bit more every rent payment to build up a buffer. So we find our tenants who are casual staff who work shifts are planning ahead for December when potentially there might not be those shifts or those hours that they earn money. So they're putting in an extra $20, $25 a week in order to build a buffer for December that they can have 2 weeks off of rent, that they can go on holiday, for instance. So we have a combination of features, call center staff to really manage that arrears. And, it's proven to work. We're really proud that we have a lower arrears rate than the market average. And we've worked with some of our biggest agencies and reduced their arrears by up to 50% because of these interventions.
That's amazing. So you are finding it's making a big difference. Do you have any case studies that you can share with us, with any clients, maybe when you got what it was like before you guys, or before they converted across to RentPay? Because I think that is a game changer for agencies. You're taking like I said, my team spend a good chunk of their morning every single day getting on top, not just rent arrears, but also bond arrears or invoice arrears. It just it's a constant follow up for us. So I think this is a game changer if you guys actually step in and assist us in that process. And then we are also, I just had a thought then, we're not always the bad guy that's chasing them for the negative stuff, pay your rent, there's somebody else that can take that bad guy cap for a change.
Sure. We do have case studies. So we have 2 case studies of 2 agencies, one a large agency, plus 2,000 rent roll, a smaller agency of 700. The larger agency, we reduced their rent arrears by 60%, and the smaller agency reduced their rent arrears by 46%. So we've got proven stats that we help them along the way. And, I think tenants really, really enjoy our interventions because we sit before it gets to the agency. So for the agency, they just see the tenant as paying on time every single time. However, because of timing, life shocks, different payment methods, we're able to manage the tenant and get them to pay on time as per schedule. So the agency is kind of none the wiser. They just see the rent on time. It's paid the right amount, the right frequency in my trust account, clearly referenced. So for them, it's a real big win.
And that's amazing. That then frees up our time to be able to do our business development or to do our customer service. We don't have to worry about that as much as we normally would have to do.
Yeah, that's right. And we've done sort of motion studies that using RentPay cuts down your admin time from 2 hours a day to 15 minutes a day. So it's really, just reconciling and receipting via our pay file system on our dashboard, as opposed to checking every single entry and then following up individually with your tenants.
And I think one of the other things I remember when I had one of your colleagues on the podcast last year, you guys, the money doesn't hit the agency's account until it's cleared funds. Is that right? So there's no dishonors that we have to worry about refunding money if it gets dispersed accidentally to property owners. It's just cleared funds that hit our account. If you are anything like me, you think you know your rent roll numbers. Well, I thought I did until I had a rent roll health check, and I was quite literally shocked. The money I was leaving on the table was astounding. And this is not something that I'm proud to admit. There were missed management fees, let fees, advertising, and lease renewal fees not being charged, and properties even without bonds. And all of this was happening despite monthly audits being conducted in my business. So how did I uncover all these gaps in my valuable income? Well, I had a rent roll due diligence from my good friend Tazi, aka the Rent Roll Queen and founder of the Tazi Way, a specialist in rent roll due diligence, business valuation and management rights. The Tazi Way is the innovative force driving the real estate industry. With 25 years of business and real estate acumen, they find gaps and risks in your agency to find undiscovered value. If you'd like to book your business in for a rent roll due diligence, head to the link in the show notes and mention That Property Mum for a 10% discount. If you're ready to be a super organised, focused and productive property manager, buckle up, because Colmio is about to revolutionise the way that you work. Colmio is the driving force behind property management excellence in residential real estate. Now picture this, a comprehensive end-to-end system designed to be the beating heart of your property management tasks, manage your properties, owners and tenants, and handle payments, inspections, and even marketing listings without leaving the platform. Colmio is designed to be an all-in-one solution to all your property management needs. And here's the game changer. Colmio isn't just software. It's been awarded the most innovative prop tech scale up in 2023. Yes, you heard it right. Colmio has been recognised for their groundbreaking approach to property management software. How good is that? So property managers, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, dive into the future of property management with Colmio. You can book in a demo with the team today and go in their weekly draw for a Prezi gift card worth $100. All you need to do is to head to the link colmio.com/thatpropertymum, and Colmio is Kolmeo.
Yeah, that's right. So every single day we have a single daily batch file that we pay over to the agencies at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time every single day. And the money we pay over is all cleared, full payments, and there's never going to be a dishonor and there's never going to be a clawback. So it's going to be clearly referenced, the full amount, all cleared payments into your trust account, accompanied by a pay file, which is compatible with all property trust accounting systems that you drag into your system, and it reconciles and receipts for you.
Amazing. That sounds like a dream. Sounds too good to be true almost. Now, in Queensland, there is, I'm not sure if you're aware, I'm not sure if it's happening over your way as well, but we're having some legislation changes coming in where we have to offer tenants a free option to pay their rent. So I guess, do you have that built into your platform? And I guess, you know, just with what you guys are doing, you're very innovative in this space. You know, what do you see the future as rental payments for tenants?
Yeah, so it's a really good point on the free way to pay. So our agencies that come on board, there's two models to pay for rent pay. Either the tenant pays the subscription fee, or the agent pays the subscription fee for the tenant. If the agent pays the subscription fee for the tenant, it effectively makes a free way to pay. So that subscription includes all direct debits and all pay IDs. So that's free ways for the tenant to pay. Just this morning, we were onboarding a really big agency that's paying the subscription for all their tenants, and we're migrating them across. And all their tenants are using the service for free. So that's how that solves the free way to pay issue.
Right. And then what about some of the future innovations? Is there anything that you guys are particularly excited about that you can share with me that is coming in terms of, you know, I guess mitigating rent arrears and supporting tenants with their rental payments?
Yeah, so probably the new features for agents that we've just released around invoicing and rental adjustments. So in the rent pay system, agents can come in and put an invoice for water or a bond top up if they accept bonds, or they can put a rental adjustment, an increase, and that will flow directly through to the user, who just clicks a few buttons and confirms the rental increase and confirms the bill payment, and they pay through RentPay for the invoicing, and the rental increase is built into the system and into the schedule. So it's as easy as a few clicks for the tenant. You don't even have to take up agency's time phoning the tenant and talking them through a bill or rent increase. It just flows through the system. So we're really excited about those agent features who our agent customers have asked for, and we've kind of built that and delivered on that. On the payment side, very, very exciting stuff's coming down the line. We're in the process of building our next iteration. So we've just launched international wallets. So Alipay, WeChat Pay, and Union Pay. So for international students and expats using our service, they can pay via those international wallets. We are building PayPal functionality so that anyone who wants to pay their rent via PayPal can do that. That's going to be another Australian first. And then we're expecting by Christmas to have Pay2 installed in RentPay and live. So that would effectively take over direct debits, and it's a faster method for tenants to pay. They've got more control over it. Interesting enough, and most importantly for agents, it then becomes an instant way to pay. So that Pay2, there's no 2-day delay, 3-day delay, or sometimes even 5 days delay for direct debits. Pay2 becomes an instant payment method, which I think is really exciting for agents.
So when's that coming in?
So that's live now. You can use that across. But for RentPay, it's coming in. We're going to build that functionality hopefully by Christmas.
Amazing. And now, maybe just for anyone that is not familiar with RentPay, that maybe didn't listen to the previous episode on RentPay, just maybe give us an overview of the actual platform. And because you have a lot of different aspects to it, it's not just a payment platform either, is it?
Yes. So on the front end for the renter, we have more ways to pay your rent. Everything from direct debit, BPay, PayID, credit cards, debit cards, international wallets. They can choose how they pay their rent with a whole bunch of features and rewards built into the front end. So renters pay the rent, it clears through our gateway. We then have a single daily batch file that's paid to the agency, and accompanying that is a dashboard where the agency has access to pay files. They can track payments on their tenants. They can, put invoices, rent increases through there. They could, have a view on upcoming payments. So it's a really good overview or resource for the agency to track all their tenants. And then, importantly for agents, is we're integrated into Property Tree, and we're compatible with all trust accounting systems. So that means the pay file then creates efficiencies for agencies in receipting and reconciling their rent amounts.
Amazing. Yeah, I've had quite a few demos, and in fact, in my property management membership, I've got a demo of the platform in there for anyone that is a member of my membership. Now, I love personal development. Can you share a tool, book, resource, or podcast that you think will help our listeners today?
Interesting. So I have just finished reading Atomic Habits again, which has refreshed my view on my daily habits. But just in terms of personal development, I've come from an academic background, so I've always focused on learning different new skill sets, everything from formal education to certificates to company director courses. I would highly suggest just exploring what you're interested in, even if it's not aligned to your current role. I like to go and explore different avenues for learning. I'm currently at the moment learning a little bit of coding, but I'm really not that good, so I don't speak to the devs about it. But it's just something I continually encourage myself and my family to, just explore, learn all different types, and maybe find your niche.
Absolutely. I love that. I am exactly like you, always looking to learn new things. And I'm currently learning to become a bike rider again. I haven't ridden a bike in 15 years. So I've got, working out wind trainers and all the different bits and pieces, all the amazing tech that you can get now with bikes. It's phenomenal.
It's expensive habits.
Yes, it is. I'm doing a charity bike ride in Thailand next year. So I had to get get training and get on top of it. But I totally agree with you. I think, you've got to keep learning, got to keep growing, and, other challenging ourselves as well, get out of the rut that we sometimes get into, and enjoy our lives. So, and Atomic Habits, I love that book as well. It is a great book as well. Now, how can our audience connect further with you?
Right. So I'm always available. You can connect through the website. My email address, is shaneL@rent.com. There's a support line through RentPay. You can contact the customer call center and customer service department who will, handle any one of your queries. If you'd like to set up a demo, myself and the head of customer service are more than happy to take you through an in-depth demo of the product, the service, any new developments that we are building. So yeah, any one of those avenues, we're more than happy to engage with any agency.
Amazing. I will share all of those links in the show notes. Shane, thank you so much for joining me. We've had a few attempts to get here. We've finally got here. I'm really excited about what you guys offer with your RentPay platform. That was a mouthful. So yeah, I can't wait to connect with you again down the track and see what else you've got coming up.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. And it's a really exciting time at RentPay. We're growing quite a bit. We've just passed the $300 million in rent processed mark. So we're growing, we're adding agencies. Our partnerships with Property Tree and other service providers are growing. I really think the next few years is going to be really exciting for RentPay.
Thank you so much, Shane.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Can I ask you a quick favour before you leave this episode? Now, we all know how important reviews are for businesses these days, and mine is no different. If you could spare just a minute to follow, rate and review this podcast, it would mean a lot to me. In fact, what would get me super excited is if you share this podcast with someone in the industry who you think might need to hear some of the episodes right now. And if you'd like to find out more about working with me or any of the products I have to help you start, grow or scale your property management business, head to my website, thatpropertymum.com.au, or check out the links in the show notes.